It really is about the process, and really the results have got to take care of themselves. And it's not going to look like you think it's going to look originally, and you have to be okay with that. But you can always get there. Certain clients that are going to resonate with certain people. There's not a one thing fits all mentality. That's the kind of people I think I attract, and that's the kind of people who I think appreciate that type of an approach. We spend so much time on what could I have and what do I need is probably the thing that you need to spend more time on. This is your pile of money to spend for the month. So close your eyes, think about how that feels, think about the things that you want to do. How does that all work? Because you only got that pile. There's
Mhm.
always going to be a positive way to describe things and a negative way to describe things. How do you get yourself out of that when you're headed in the wrong direction?
Welcome to the Differentiation Podcast. My name is Michèle Sorgaroli. I'm your host, and today we are being joined by Tom Kelly. Now, Tom has been, hello, Tom. Tom has been spending the last 3 decades, more or less, building something that a lot of professional financial advisors will talk about, but have a lot of trouble executing well. Tom and his business partner have designed a wealth practice where their entire focus is on helping clients achieve truly meaningful, life-changing milestones. Tom is a portfolio manager. He is a husband and father of three. He is a coach to his children's hockey teams, or rather sports teams. There's a few more sports than just hockey. He's also a North Shore mountain biker, and he's a team player, an avid team player, who, as I understand it, deeply values environments where everyone is pulling in the same direction. How does that sound to you, Tom?
It sounds pretty good, right? You make it sound probably better than the reality, but we'll
Uh,
take it. Thank you.
yeah, that's awesome. It's a delight to have you here today. Thank you for joining us. Now, we've known each other a long time. I think we're going on over 25 years or something. It's been a while. So it's been a
Sure.
real delight seeing you as you've been building your practice and developing that to what it has become today. I am curious. I've known you for a long time, and you've tended to say that, you really, the words that kind of resonate for me is you want to do really great work with really great people. I want to take that and see where did that come from, do you think? Where did this whole thing start? Take us to the beginning.
Yeah, specifically, it's tough because in a lot of these cases these are developed over time, and I can't say
Mhm.
there's sort of one thing that
Mm.
that led to that thing, but I think probably, I mean, the root of all this stuff is more just in hard work. More than anything else, right? You think of all the things I do sometimes in our industry is that there's a lot of boards. You're number one this, you're doing this, you're doing whatever that is, and to me, not really important. Trying to sort of concentrate more on, as they say, the process and the hard work. Right, that
Oh,
that goes
interesting.
into that. So, yeah, I'm not sure that there's sort of that great work for great people comes from the hard work on our side, but also we really respect those people that have the business owners, the people who
Yeah.
have raised multiple children, all of those things that you have to do to be successful. We really respect that, and that's why I think we attract people that we like.
Yeah, you've made a really good point. You started us off with in this industry, there are a lot of boards, like leaderboards and boards that promote competition and promote performance and really highlight that attention. So I know you're an active athlete yourself, and I'm assuming this started when you were a young kid, right? As a little one, a little tyke. So you were raised, I'm going to guess, correct me if I'm wrong, in a somewhat competitive environment. Is that a fair statement?
I think it's a fair statement. So there's four kids in our family. Athletics has always been kind of a very important thing for us. You know my older brother, so
Hmm.
I used to be and probably to this day still my best friend. But I was always out there competing with his friends. Right, who were
Yeah.
4 years older than me. So,
Uh,
absolutely, that was important. But it wasn't that. As a kid, and for most people, I think that you look at it and you say competition is important to me. I'm going to go. It's just something that you did, right? You didn't want to lose. There was this inherent need to be able to, try and do as well as you could, and then that kind of feeds. Sometimes when you're successful, that kind of feeds on that
yeah.
for better or for worse. And and you develop that competitiveness, probably to the point that sometimes you need to look at it. And I look back on it now after having
Mm,
been through it with my kids and
yeah.
coaching and things, is that there's probably a more balanced way to look at it. So I love this stuff. I love the mindset, positivity, all those kind of things. So I look at it much differently today in terms of what
Hmm.
competition is
Oh,
versus what I did
interesting.
when I was a kid.
Ooh, share with us how that shifted. So, competition as a kid versus competition today. What's different in your mindset?
Yeah, very simple. So competition as a kid for everybody, I think, unless you're a very advanced
Mm.
kid, which maybe those exist, I don't know, is results, right? Even
Mm.
more today, right?
Hmm.
What are they looking at? They're looking at, as soon as they get off the ice, how many goals did I get? How many assists?
Right.
Who's patting me on the back for what? What are the results, right, on
Mm.
that? And really the competition part of things, and again the development of my thought process there is more. It really is about the process. It really is about what you do before and enjoying the journey. And really, the results have got to take care of themselves. And sometimes those are going to happen, and sometimes they aren't. But if you are 100% focused on results every single time, you might get that result once. Are you going to get that over and over again? Are you going to feel good about what you're doing? Are you going to
Right.
surround yourself with the right people? I don't think so. Right. So I think it's kind of neat, just because of the way that we're in this world with instant gratification now. It's a good way to sort of peel it back in that type of
Mm.
environment and say, yeah, okay, we got to look at this and we got to say that is not the most important thing, right? How do we
I
get there?
love that. Yeah, you're making a really good point. You talked about kids. When we're kids, it's all about the results. You also said the pat on the back. It really is that piece about how did I do and did I do well? And as children, like you said, I think most of us have been in that place as a youth. And then you talked about today, where it's really about the process and the journey, and the results follow. And it's about being with the people that make it a more fulfilling. That's what I'm hearing. Is that what you're communicating?
Absolutely, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's and I sort of say these things as if I'm developing all this and I'm really good at this and I'm learning as I go, right?
Yeah.
And that's been really good for me sometimes is you'll catch yourselves in the middle of a day and just say, okay, wait a second here. What
Yeah.
well, what am I doing? What is the process? What can I control? What can I not control? And for the people around me, how can I recognize that as well and maybe help them? Right, help them
Yeah.
to say, hey, you know what, if we don't get there because it was on this target board, if we don't get there today, what do we have to do, and how do we feel good about going through that journey, and how we're going to get there.
Yeah, I hear that.
It's hard to
You've
do.
brought It's
It's
hard
hard
to
to do.
do. It's hard to do. Absolutely. You're talking, and you brought up the language, it's work, work ethic, I think you said, or hard work, that's what you said. In terms of adhering to a process and having discipline around the process. That's the piece that I'm finding really interesting in this conversation. So there's the hard work and the discipline around the process, but also there's a softer side in terms of being kind to yourself about the journey and enjoying the journey. And you talked about the people on the journey with you, or the people that are part of that. So there's this rigor, and then there's this other part in the path to achievement, if you will, in the journey itself. Can you talk a little bit about the journey component? Because we haven't yet touched on that.
Yeah, I think it's and again, this would be maybe things that you learn over the years is that you have to certainly have to look at where you're going. So you
Mm,
have to define where that is that you're going, but you sort of have to step back and say, well, now, great, I've got that. And if that's achievable, how am I actually going to do that? So what do I need to do now? What do I
mm,
need to do a couple of steps from now? And who can help me? Right? Who is that person?
mm.
And I think I probably come by this honestly. I'll tell you a bit of a story here. I think
Yeah.
I was 14, working at a gas station. Awesome job, by the way. That was so much fun. And so the guys who owned the Pioneer, I think it was, on the corner of the road, and they said, okay,
Yeah.
we got a job that needs to be done, and we're willing to pay you double. what you're getting right now per hour to do this. I said, okay, what is it? Can't be that bad. I don't want to be paid double. It's all good. 14 years old. So the septic tank had piled up in the back, and it was now above the actual lid that you had to
Oh,
remove in order to go in. So my job was to go in there and to get down 2 feet in sewage,
oh my
basically, to
goodness.
reach this tank, right? And I said, no problem, all good. So my process was to, sure, it's double what I'm going to get right now. I'm going to grab a shovel and I'm going to go at it. Right, and that's what I did. So I spent 2 days probably doing the worst thing that I've ever done in my life, because I didn't actually think about it in terms of what that end result actually meant in terms of the process to get there. Right. So again, I come by it honestly there. So I think I think today I think back on these things and just say, okay, we've got somewhere that we want to go. Now, how do we build those steps to be able to get there, knowing that it's not going to be exactly the way we imagined it, probably.
Really, really interesting. There's a real strength in your voice when you shared that story, and you said it now a couple of times, but you said, okay, okay, no problem, all good. How are we going to do this? Let's get at it. There's something very, like I said, there's a strength in that that's coming through, and I'm wondering, it feels like some conviction, some focus, some maybe it's a bit of that competitive piece of you that's about, let's just get it done. Can you share a little bit about where that's coming from? I feel like that has more to it before age 14.
Yeah, I think it's and again, maybe that's just a sort of a mindset thing. Is that I just I try to come at things naturally, fairly naturally, that it can be done. Right. So no matter what it is, it's not that, can it be done or can it not be done? It can be done. Again, it's not going to look like you think it's going to look originally, and you have to be okay with that. But you can always get there. And it's probably because I've been really fortunate in my life with big decisions. So I always say I'm the most unlucky person at small things. So if you want somebody to scratch your lottery ticket or something, I'm like the furthest person to do that. But on big decisions, I've been super lucky. I finished high school. Was fortunate to have the opportunity to go to many different places in terms of university, which was great in Canada,
Hmm.
and ended up sort of at the last minute going to UVic. So coming across the country from Mississauga, which is where I grew up, and going to UVic, and basically leaving everyone behind. I didn't know anybody. I
Wow.
had exactly three things with me. I had a bag of clothes, which was the smallest.
Yeah.
I had my hockey bag, and I had an electronic typewriter.
Oh my
Uh,
gosh. Yes.
those are
Dating ourselves a
the
wee bit,
three.
aren't we?
There we go. So I showed up at the dorms there in UVic, and so I met my wife within a couple of days of getting there. In fact, a couple of hours, and lots of my good friends
Oh my
that I have
gosh.
to today. Those big decisions, which I probably didn't make with all the most direct intentions.
Mm,
You're in that situation, and you say, well, this can be great. Let's
yeah.
make this work. What do we have to do to make this work? And those decisions for me, again, fortunate. I've always been very lucky, and those have always been sort of life-changing, positive
Yeah.
changes for me.
Yeah. Beautiful. I love that. Your clothing bag was the smallest. Your hockey bag was bigger. That's not surprising knowing hockey, but now were you moving to UVic to play hockey, or were you bringing your hockey bag as a recreational thing that gave you opportunity to play?
Yeah, I think there's probably some deep psychological reason for it. I literally brought it not because I was going to play competitively
Okay.
anymore. I'd sort of been done with that.
Okay.
I was actually looking to play a little bit more rugby when I came out west here, but
Oh,
I thought,
interesting.
hey, this is how I've had a lot of my social network and how
Yeah.
I've met people. And man, I'd really like to play for fun. And turned out, playing in those intramural games and
Yeah.
and just being a part of that was again a big part of that friend group and those people that you meet over the years. So it remains an important thing to me today in terms of that activity and the social network that it can bring. And I
Hmm.
always tell. my daughter plays hockey and field hockey, all sorts of stuff. I help out on the ice hockey side, and for them, because so many of the young ladies quit
Hmm.
team sports
Hmm.
between the ages of about 16 and 18. I constantly say, what you need when you're an old fart like me is somewhere to go, and you can talk to people who are nothing like you,
Yeah.
and you can extract yourself from the day to day and not think about it at all. Right. And then
Yes.
that's where you can go and do it. Right. So I think sport's important for that. And that's I think anyway, a good driver to try and keep them active in those team sports. And hopefully they do, but it's tough because you got all the pressures of life pulling your time in other directions.
Yeah, well, to your point, I think you've really touched on something really important where you're aware today, and perhaps at that time you said it was a social network you were tapping into by bringing your hockey bag out west, right? You were recognizing that, yeah, you like to play. It was also an outlet for you, but it was a social portal to being able to be both active and social. And I think that's something that is really, really important where we build our networks and how we build our networks. And sports do give access to that. So interesting. I'm finding that really curious. People are a big part of your life, evidently, Tom.
It's just a little strange for you to say it because I always think of myself as a more introverted. Certainly, I'm fine on my own too. So I
Yeah.
sometimes I do find myself saying, yeah, no, let's sort of force myself into those situations a little bit more.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's people, but it's not an auditorium of 1,000 people is
Yeah.
not my thing.
More meaningful relationships, right?
Sure,
More
yeah.
meaningful relationships and all pulling in the same direction,
Yeah.
which has been a common theme for you. Okay, so now I'm curious. So you get to UVic, you've got your hockey bag with you, and you studied in business, right? Was it finance right out of the gates, or how did that happen?
Here we go with all the stories,
I
Michelle. You're hitting
know.
on them all here. I'm going out west, right? I'm from Mississauga. I'm going out. I went whole hog. So I was in marine biology. So
Oh,
I
good
was,
heavens.
I
Okay.
was
I did
I'm going
not
out
know
there.
that. Oh
Yeah,
my
there you go.
gosh.
So I did my
Okay.
my first 2.5 years were science, biology. I was heading in that direction. About 2.5 years into that degree, and I can picture myself today sitting in the lab in the basement of some building at UVic there, and I was probably dissecting some invertebrate thing that I couldn't recognize, and I literally walked out. I said, "Can't do this anymore."
Oh
I,
wow. It was really
I
clear.
don't like this. I don't
Wow.
like it. All these people saying, "Oh, that's great." And so I was probably doing that for the notion of what that would be,
Yeah.
and then eventually just to get it done because people are sort of counting on you to get things
Hmm.
done. But I was fortunate. I walked out of there and said, "I'm not doing that anymore." Took a look at my transcript and I said, "Okay, what do I have? What can I turn this into?" I was fortunate enough that I had done an economics course.
Okay.
And I said, wait a second, I kind of like that. And with everything that I had already, I was able to do kind of a weird degree. So a BSc in economics, which is econometrics, statistics, and those types of things. So
Okay.
I was able to still translate a lot of what I had already done to that. So there you go. Came out with an
Interesting.
economics degree. Yeah.
Beautiful. So you've alluded to a couple things that happens even today with business people, right? It's that I don't like this anymore. I
Mhm.
don't want to do this part of my business anymore. I don't like this part of my work anymore. And so many people face that kind of challenge, and aren't necessarily um, ready to take the step to say, okay, let's take stock and redesign this. What allowed you, or what was the piece in play for you that gave you the courage to go against the grain? And people are like all rooting for you and saying, "Wow, marine biology, especially on the West Coast, that's an amazing degree." Right? I was like, "We're by the ocean. This is fantastic." What allowed you to go to be true to you and go counter to the feedback that you were getting outside?
I think it goes back to that make it work, right? I felt like once I got there from a mind point of view, then there's no use going in that direction. And although it's going to be maybe a little bit difficult and maybe not the clearest path to go the other way, I'll make it work. Right. And sort of enough of a confidence after having moved out there and developed a sort of a great life and a great network of people.
Hmm.
All those people around me, I think, just give you that confidence to say, okay, perfect. I got to make a change, and I don't really have to, answer to anybody except myself at the end of the day, and people are going to understand, and certainly they did, and it was yeah, relatively easy transition. But I don't think you do those things unless you're confident enough to say, yeah, I can do it. I don't know what it looks like just yet exactly, but I think I can do it.
Nice. You said, make it work. People around me only answer to me, and there's the confidence that I can do it. Where where did that confidence start or come from? Like, is that something that was promoted in your earlier life, or is that something that you nurtured and developed inside yourself? This is something that a lot of people struggle with as they're facing a decision like the one we're talking about, right, in their professional world as well. So I'm curious about where it came from. What you
Yeah,
tap into.
I don't have a pinpoint on where that came
Mm,
from, but I do know that um, I sort of had it for a long time. I was
mm,
fortunate. I mean, it was probably the positions that I was put in when I was a kid was, hey, you can do this, you can succeed. My parents were, I mean, the typical parents at the time, we didn't see them much, but they were very positive.
yeah.
They were very, very encouraging, and
Mm-hmm.
in fact, they would go so far as to say, hey, you make the money, you can spend it on whatever you like.
Mm-hmm.
So the confidence on making those decisions and being independent there, I think built because you make a couple of those decisions, you say, "Hey, I can do this," and then you just keep moving down the line. And I
Mm,
probably at some point, I remember a friend of mine in high school. I don't know why you remember these things. It's bizarre what you remember sometimes, but
yeah.
we're on
These are
we're
all
on the
little
phone.
things that impact who you are today.
It is right. So, and we're on the football field, and he said after, he says, you're cocky," and I said, "I don't think so."
Mm,
So I think about that today, and I think, no, I don't think I was. I think I was confident, but I don't think I was that far. So it's one of
that's
those things I think that's
really,
just come with me.
yeah, that's curious. So interesting. So, because that's something people are, in my work especially, it shows up a lot where I don't want to show up as cocky. I don't want to be too salesy. I don't want to be too self-promotional. I don't, this you're cocky is kind of the underlying message there. And here you're thinking, but I don't think I was. I was confident, but I wasn't cocky. Where do you think that line is? Like for you, it was experienced one way, and for this other person, it was you were they experienced you differently. What do you think was happening in that exchange?
Yeah, it's another good question. I think probably, and you look back on that, was probably younger, so the confidence probably comes a lot along differently.
Mm,
What I can say is I've thought about that a lot. Right, I bring it up today, so I do think about that now in terms
yeah.
of where is that line,
Mm,
and just making sure that we're respectful, because that's not a line I want to cross. So I certainly don't want to come across that way. But I think
mhm,
confidence is one of those things that's been really important to me. So you don't want to lose that.
mm.
So I think it's oftentimes it's just sort of how it's perceived on the other side. But I'm more aware of it certainly than I was when I was younger.
Yeah, I think that's fair. It's an interesting piece because, that what you're highlighting here is there's a respect inside it as well that I think younger people, we're not as skillful when we're young, right? We deliver differently or we show up differently, and it's not necessarily being perceived as intended or even as we think of self, but and this happens a lot where our energy isn't necessarily received or perceived as we, our self-image. Respect is a big piece here. Okay, so we've covered some really interesting territory, and what keeps coming up for me is in your practice today, in your business today with your business partner, Tyler. Um, you've built this business, this wealth practice where the entire focus, as I mentioned, is really on the milestones and achieving these really life-changing or life-affirming, if you will, milestones with your clients, which I'm hearing process. A huge part of it is the process and the journey, but you've talked several times about the target. What's the target? And then the how are we going to get there? It feels like there's a lot of alignment here from even who you were as a young man. So tell us a little bit about how this came to be over the last 30 years or so while you've been at this building.
Yeah, so I think it's just how my mind works. So I almost don't know another way of how to do it. So I was again very fortunate in my younger years before I developed my own businesses. I worked for one of the mutual fund companies. My job was to go out and talk to financial advisors, and so I learned a lot. Right, thousands of
Mm,
people doing business different ways, and one of the things that I learned was there's going to be certain clients that are going to to resonate with certain people. Right,
mm,
there's not a one thing fits all mentality, and I know I was telling the story to one of the guys here. Last week is there was a guy in Victoria that I used to cover, and he was just abrasive, right? To me,
mm,
he
mm.
was a fairly abrasive guy, and he says, can you come out to my golf tournaments and say a few words and be with my clients?" And so I spent the better part of a couple of weeks thinking, "Oh my God, this is going to be something. I wonder what that." And you show up, and all of his clients were exactly like he was.
Yeah.
Right. So that to me, that was bizarre. And to him, he had found his clan. So I think for me, it's the same thing. If that kind of thing, that kind of process doesn't resonate with you and trying to aim for something and that being an important, driver for you in terms of
Yeah.
how we do that, then that's probably not the type of person that I'm going to attract. And even so far as to, and it's not the right way. It's just the way that I do it. But if we're using all this wonderful technologies these days with AI, and my AI person will tell me all the time, you could have a little bit more empathy. Right? Don't go straight always to the process and do that. So, so even the AI
Oh,
people are looking at that and saying, "Yep, maybe too process oriented." But that's the kind of people I think I attract, and that's the kind of people who I think appreciate that type of an approach.
absolutely. To your point, a a fantastic experience for you with this Victoria client of yours at the time. To see not just how you and he were so drastically different, and having that experience in a pronounced way enough so that you remember it, but then going and seeing his entire community of clients and how it was like, profound learning in that moment because it really, I imagine it's impacted again how you build your own business today and the type of clients you're looking for and who you want to bring into your practice, right?
Percent. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
Interesting about you talked about too much, maybe a little too much process, not enough empathy. I always like to say, Tom, that the too muchness in your business or the too muchness in your approach is generally one of your greatest differentiators because it's something that you do exceptionally well. It's something that you're driven towards. It's something that you can naturally exude and express and build on. How do you, as you think about your own practice and where process fits, what excites you about it specifically? The excitement of process. Why is that so important?
I think there's maybe two things, and one will be more direct answer than the other. But and after talking about the result not being the most important, I mean, to get where you want to go or to get somebody where they want to go is really rewarding, right? It's really neat to be able to go through. I think this industry where you get generations of families and you see people go through different phases, and to have those conversations sometimes where and a lot, which is we're so fortunate to have, but to say you got too much, right? Dude, here's your lifestyle. Here's what you built. Here's where we've got to go out there and have a good time because you got the means to be able to do that. And that to me is extremely rewarding, right? And
Hmm.
it's all part of that. People won't recognize that, but all probably part of that process that they started or we started years and years and years ago. So it's kind of seeing that and seeing the kids who go off and do their education and it was funded for them and they don't come out with any loans and all of those things in the end that for them, that's a really big lifestyle, kind of one up on a lot of people and a comfort level that
Hmm.
maybe they know and maybe they don't, but I think it's a wonderful thing to be able to get to.
Nice. Love it. You, it's interesting. You're referring to process through the lens of the journey, as I'm hearing. You talked about you've been at this for years and years and years, and setting this up, and then the reward happens, and there's this really meaningful outcome. So I'm hearing process and journey very closely linked to you, that there's the discipline through the whole journey that allows for these really truly meaningful outcomes. Is that resonating for you? Does that land?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
When you hear that back, what is it about the discipline in the journey itself that is most pronounced for you? Like, what I'm trying to get at is, in the process itself, through the journey, how do you retain the discipline, or what is it about the discipline through the journey um, that you lean into in order to create these incredible milestones for your clients?
I think probably the consistency more than anything else, right? Because there's always going to be something that's going to be pulling you in another direction or in the wrong direction. Our obvious one is, we deal with markets. It's
Hmm.
a completely random walk, and no matter how many people look at you and say you must know more than I do, we got to admit that can really pull us in different directions. So
Hmm.
no matter what's happening with those things that you can't control, and that might be, death in the family, or the kids aren't headed in the right direction, whatever that might be.
Hmm.
How can we put this into bite-sized pieces just to say, what, we're okay. This is what we have to do today in order to continue to succeed. So it oftentimes it's the same thing over and over again, but the context is completely different as people go through their lives, and hopefully that consistency is something they can come back to and say, okay, yeah, I recognize that worked before. We'll make it through this one. Here's what we're going to do.
Oh, there's something about that. So there's consistency in the differing contexts, which is interesting. And then we've seen this before. So there's a recognition that this pattern works. Is that what I'm hearing?
I think so, right? And you sort of have to live through it and relive through it and say, hey, we have been here before, and let's
Mm.
remember. Let's go back to that point, and then where we're at today. And the world didn't completely fall apart, so we're okay. We're okay if we
Yeah.
continue to stick with that discipline. But at the same time, as I say that, it sort of implies that you're doing exactly the same thing all the time. And I think that's dangerous too, because you've got to move with how you can do things better. It doesn't have to be different, but it can certainly be better. And that's where the obvious one, technology over time here has really changed, right? If we're, 25 years been doing this, and I'll never forget the first person who came into the boardroom here with a BlackBerry, years ago, right? And he
Wow.
sits down at the table, and we're at the table too, and he says, I just got to do this email. And three or four of us are sitting around the table looking at him, and I think we're like, and all of us were thinking the same thing. He said, he's not plugged in.
Yeah.
How is he doing that? What does he take us for? A bunch of idiots? He's not even plugged in, right? And nowadays, you're in an airplane, and I say, oh, I can't get my Wi-Fi, and but that was a big revolution, right? So that and the internet, and now AI, all of these things can change us in a way. They can be both. It can be good and bad, but
Hmm.
certainly you have to say, okay, what can make this process, the core root of what our process is, better, by utilizing the things that are changing around us.
That's great. I love that. The core root of the process, really capturing something there. So what I heard, consistency, you made a really important nuance here where consistency can be perceived as something stagnating or something that is always the same thing and repeated exactly the same way. Um, and that nuance where you said it's not stagnating and it's not necessarily different, but consistency is better and aligned with the core root of the process. That's what I heard. And as we think about consistency that's better in the core root of the process, I'm hearing that allows you to build also with more confidence, I would imagine. Can you talk a little bit about how this works for you in your team and your work around process and consistency?
Yeah. I think it's the sort of constantly saying what are those things, and then pretty simple. I mean, the core root of things for us is the planning piece. Being able to actually identify those steps and what we're doing, and that will always be that way. But again, how can we do that better? Not only from a business point of view, but from an individual point of view. So, for example, and I think something you learn over time here is that amazingly people are different, right? So clients are very different from each other, and some can get overwhelmed with too much process and too much information.
Nice.
Some are all over that. So in order to take them through this, what kind of a person are we dealing with here? Should we just be taking on bite-sized pieces at first, or are we good to go and sort of get everything done all at once? So not only how those processes change to be hopefully more efficient over time, but also how does that work with each of the individuals to be able to get where they need to go.
That's where the context comes in, right? Not just external context, but context within the individual journey of each of your clients as well.
Yeah.
You're
And
really
then you never know what's going on, right? So
right.
it's I'm sure you probably got lots of stories on this as well. That you come into a meeting and you got your agenda and you got all these things, and so we always something that one of my predecessors always did that I always do as well. Say what's new on your end is the first thing,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because it could be great. It
Yeah.
could be something with family, cancer diagnosis, something that
Yeah.
they're not going to be listening to you, right? It's got
Yeah.
nothing to do with your agenda from there on in, which is fine. But
Yeah.
they would respond to the process differently under those circumstances than they would under normal circumstances.
Interesting. So knowing the context first, and then adjusting the process to serve that while staying core to the root of what you're
Yeah.
up to and the ultimate target. Okay. I love it. There's so much opportunity here to go further. I want to pivot a little bit into, you said earlier, and I got goosebumps, so I want to come back to it. To get someone where they want to go is rewarding. Those, I think, were the words. That's what I wrote down. To get someone where they want to go is rewarding. And what I saw in you was you just lit up a little bit. And so I want to ask, um, where every I think what let me back up just a minute. Most of us in some form or another feel that way, to help people get somewhere, to feel like we've mattered, to feel like we've made a difference. That is true. Most of us are going to light up in some way if we know that we've had an impact in some way. That always, that's humans are wired that way. What I noticed in you is I know that underneath you were thinking of a story, or you were thinking of the kind of rewards that you experience because people are getting somewhere. What is it that is most important for you in your client relationships and the people that you're in your network when you help them get somewhere? Where is the somewhere? Where are these milestones that just light you up like a firecracker, Tom?
Yeah, I think it's maybe, but geez, I think we're circling back on confidence here, but it's
Mm,
I think, and again, this is something that I think you just get to know over time a little bit more, but to give people the confidence. So if you're in the position, and then the best example I can give right now is that, again, we're fortunate enough to have a lot of younger folks who can retire early, right?
mm,
So that that's big. That's big on their list. But what happens, I think, when you do this when you're younger, you think, great, those numbers on the page, that's perfect. We're going to leave it at that. You're all good. See you later. Now, I think one of the things I really get a kick out of is, you know what? Here we go. Here's what you can do. You know, now I need you to close your eyes, and I
Mm.
need you to think about what that actually looks like. Right? Because if you really want to do this, you've got the opportunity to do it. But if you don't start thinking about that now, then you're going to get to that age 55 or whatever that is, and you're still going to be saying 5 years from now. So
Right. Oh my
is
gosh, yes.
that the reality, right, of what you want? And if it is the reality, because you got to think about this, right? You got to take this away, think about it. We can say confidently from a financial point of view, you're going to be fine. Now it's a case of you doing it. And if somebody, you know, you've had that conversation in the past, and you've had a couple of those conversations, usually lots of them, and then they do it. And you know they get all this freedom of time, and they're, you know, traveling around the world, they're doing different things, and they're like, oh my god, that's so good. And so that's kind of one of those examples. I think that you can be you know, more confident after having seen it work a couple of times and knowing that the numbers are what the numbers are, but giving them that confidence, because it's difficult, right? How can you possibly cross that line? And it's not these days. It's not always, you know, you work, you retire, and there's just that line in between.
Yeah.
But what is that line? That's terrifying. That's absolutely terrifying. All of you making money, boom, you're not making money, right? It's just I don't know. I always say to people, there's no way you can be comfortable with this, right? There's just not. We'll get there, and we'll get used to it. But if you're feeling these things, it's totally natural, because this is a crazy change, right? So
Yeah.
just to be able to say, you know, hey, we can do this confidently, and it's not going to feel comfortable at first. I think gives them the peace of mind to go through with it.
Really interesting to your point. You know, it's terrifying. And I heard how connected you are to that. Is there something that like, how are you so connected to that reality that is that line is a terrifying? I mean, I've talked to a lot of different advisors in my day, and worked with a lot and know a lot. And you were very pronounced about your sense of empathy for that line and that change. You were making money, now you're not making money, and that's terrifying. You lit up. What allows you to be so in tune with that? Is there a story there?
Yeah, well, yeah, there's more than one, and maybe you come at these things from knowing the other side first, but so I'll give you one. So you know, you go through that discussion, and you know you're ready, you're good to go. It was a gentleman who was a ferry pilot, right? So
Hmm.
ferry pilot. So his thing was, hey, retire, not doing anything anymore, and I'm going to go enjoy all the stuff that I do, and this is great.
Hmm.
And so perfect, you know, from a financial point of view, everything looks good. This is what we can do, great. And maybe we didn't spend enough time on the close your eyes and what does this look like? And a couple of weeks later, calls back and he says something's not right, right? This kind of isn't what I bargained for. I don't know what's going on. I feel kind of discombobulated and all that. So it was a good one to say, okay, you know, we've obviously done something in my mind. I said, okay, we've done something wrong. How do we do this? You know, let's step back. Let's see what's going on here. And through conversations there, we sort of learned that you know, you go from being a ferry pilot who's very scheduled,
Hmm.
and by being scheduled, you are, you know, dedicated to that, and then everything outside of that, you are going at 110% because you've only got so much time, but you also do that in a scheduled way. So it wasn't the financial part of it; it was the
Yeah.
scheduled, and then all of a sudden, I am freelancing, and I
Yeah.
don't know what to do. Right.
Yeah.
So that was one where we could step back and just say, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to write out a schedule. You know, that this is when you're going to go to the gym. If you're going to
Mm.
start to plan out those vacations a little bit more, this is when you're going to go see your family. And just by writing it down and having that schedule was the thing
Mm.
that he was missing. Right. So good. I think anyway, a good example of if you don't close your eyes and say, okay, what's the reality of this? Then you end up two things. One, your lifestyle that you were so looking forward to is now causing you some stress,
Hmm.
and you've just gone through that financial leap as well. So both of those things are pretty tough to manage at the same time. So, again, that's I always think that if there's a book that I'm going to write, it's going to be that, what is that line?
The
What
line.
happens when you cross that line? It's like the field of dreams.
I love it. What happens why is closing the eyes so important from your perspective, Tom?
Oh gosh, I use that as reality, right? So I think if you can do that, and whether you close your eyes or not, but the point is to think about that absolutely in reality. And if you're caught up in the day to day and you're looking around and you're not thinking about how that feels, not only how it looks, but how it feels, then I don't think you're getting a realistic picture of what that looks like.
Mhm.
So, for example, with retirement income, which I think the hardest thing for anybody to do, and you can never do it 100%, would be what do you need? Right? We spend so much time on what could I have, and what do I
Mhm.
need is probably the thing that you need to spend more time on. So
Mhm.
I try to say, okay, here you go. 5 years from now, you're sitting at the kitchen table. It is January 1st. You got a pile of money on the table. This is your pile of money to spend for the month, right? So close your eyes, think about how that feels, think about the things that you want to do. How does that all work? Because you only got that pile, right? And then the next pile comes the next month and there. And the reality of trying to actually allocate what that pile is, I think just sort of helps you go through am I comfortable with this? What do I actually need to spend on? And it gives you a more realistic view of what it might be like. And then when you get there, you feel like you've already been there a little bit.
Uh, yeah, you feel like you've already been there a little bit. Um, I love that. The closing of the eyes, yeah, I was getting a lot from you as you were sharing. As we, what I heard is when people close their eyes, it removes the distraction or the presence in the moment of the day, right? Or the moment when they're there looking around and experiencing their office or out the window or what have you. Today's life. Closing the eyes allows them to remove themselves from that and move into, in your point, 5 years into the future or whenever that is, and design in their mind's eye, literally a vision of what it would look like at that time. So they're not distracted or influenced by today. Is that what I'm getting at?
So
Is that what
super
you're,
important, right?
yeah,
Absolutely. And not with my distraction either.
yeah.
I can't tell you how you're going to feel. Like I can tell you what the numbers look like, but I can tell you it's important to think about how you're going to feel. And again, things that I'm talking about that I necessarily don't do well, but I think that maybe that's in this crazy world that we live in, that we that we think, oh my God, how do we keep up? Everything's moving faster and faster and
Hmm.
faster.
Hmm.
I mean, the skill to be able to concentrate, synthesize a large amount of information, and simplify for yourself and for others there, I think is, to me, that's the magic. I could be wrong. Maybe a machine comes in and does it for us, but right now that seems to be maybe one of the most powerful things you can do. And the hardest part is you can't learn in school, and you kind of got to figure that out for yourself, right? Everyone's got to go through a certain amount of situations where things maybe weren't in control before they need to come back to simplicity. And my hope is that people do that, but well, we shall see.
Oh, I love it. What I'm hearing again from you, it just keeps coming up, process and journey. But where I went with this was where my mind went was around process. I hear it's reasonable, it's rational, it's got the steps, it's a very logic or brain focused activity, it's planned out. Um, and journey, I heard, is what it feels like. So it's moving more into the body and awareness, or that's where we get into our senses as opposed to our brain. We sort of connect with something different there. Hence the closing of the eyes and hence the meaningful milestones. And what is this actually going to feel like? So the process, I'm hearing that that's what's happening in this dynamic in your work and in your world. And
Mhm.
I keep going back to sports because I keep thinking it seems to me, and I don't have the athletic history that you do, but it seems to me that sports is probably when you're playing at a reasonably high level, you've got the discipline, you've got the hard work ethic that's built in, you've got the target that you're headed for, and the process of practice, consistent discipline in different contexts is right, is very much, and then the growth edge comes from really tapping into your intuitive sense and the feeling of the muscle memory and just allowing it to do its thing and feeling like this is what feels right or this is what feels natural without
Yeah.
engaging too much. That's kind of where I'm going with this. What are
Yeah.
your thoughts?
Yeah. No, it's huge. So again, this is, if there's something I could say that I really get a kick out of these days. And so my oldest son is playing a fairly high level of hockey where for us, 30 years ago, what that would have meant is people would tell you just to skate harder or try harder. And now it's just so much better, right? It's in the mindset piece of things comes in and they get all this great content and all this great training on mindset and how important that is. And, when you're up against something, give it a name. If you give it a name, then you've actually got something that you can challenge on
Mm-hmm.
that side. So I think it really is the root of that is always that control what you can't control, but
Mm-hmm.
how you actually do that is very difficult. And I think the other wrinkle that I throw out there as well is and something I've wrestled with as well, and is within all of that you've got to maintain the positivity, right? Because there's
Mm-hmm.
always going to be a positive way to describe things and a negative way to describe things. There's
Yeah.
always a trivial way to look at things, and you can go the opposite side as well. So how do you get yourself out of that sometimes when you're when
Mm-hmm.
you're headed in the wrong direction?
Mm-hmm.
That's sort of that, just I think that awareness of the positivity, and then if you can move that into, okay, the mindset part of that is going to be, here's what I actually have to do to be able to get where I'm going to go, and it's okay if I don't get there. If I've done everything, then great. I can enjoy it while I'm actually going through this process.
Yeah, I love it. So just as a final piece here, we talked about your value or how much you value everybody moving in the same direction. When you think about this conversation and you think about your work and your life generally, what does that mean for you when everyone is moving in the same direction?
Yeah. What does it mean? Probably. Yeah, it's the hardest. I think it's the hardest thing to achieve,
Mm.
and maybe the greatest thing to feel and to witness. So, I was terrible when I was a kid. I was absolutely terrible. But I was a drummer, and I played some instruments and things. And because we were so horrible, very rarely did we actually produce some sort of music that you get that the hair would stand up, and you're like, this is really good, right? So when it did happen, that's the ultimate, right? Because everything's got to be in tune, everything's got to be there, but you can really feel it, right? As soon as it happens, you're like, oh my God, oh, I want to see that again, but it's so hard to get. So it's that in tune, and then I think about my kids, for example, and picturing them not too long ago and out in the water, and all playing on their paddle boards, and hitting golf balls in, and going and picking them up, and doing, and they're all doing that together, which doesn't happen
Mhm.
very often when you have three kids, and that it's the same thing, right? It's
Yeah.
like, oh my God, the music. This is fantastic. So I think it's just sort of the feeling you get when you're around it, or when you get to be a part of that. It's pretty unique. It's hard to get there, and it's something that I just love.
I love that. I sensed a sense of euphoria, right? When um, this feeling when everything's all aligned and it's magic and it's all attuned and there's a state of flow and there's goosebumps in that moment, and that's what I hear. That's
Yeah.
uh, that's what I hear you seeking and building towards going forward. Yeah,
There you
I
go.
love it. Wow, there's so much here. Tom, as you reflect on the conversation today, what would you like our listeners to remember from today if they were to remember one thing? What would be important?
Yeah, it would be that, you know what, concentrate on the process, and on whatever you're doing. That is the hardest, and not because of, you know, what the process is, but just because it'll give you enjoyment on whatever that is before you actually get there. Right? We spend a lot more time on the journey than we do at the final destination. So how do you do that? Right? How do we actually get that enjoyment? And yeah, I think the more people can do that, the more fun it is along the way. And yeah, that'd be great.
Awesome. And more people pulling in the same direction, right,
Direction.
will
Yeah.
generally result in better outcomes, as you've seen with your work. For those people who might like to find you and learn more about you and your team, Tom, where might they be able to reach you?
Yeah, so you could reach out to us. Probably the best thing to do would be to go through the Granville West Group website,
Yeah.
and you can find me there. I look something like this. It's an older picture, but I look something like this. So you can always reach me there.
All right, perfect. We will make sure that that's available. And thank you for today. It's been an enlightening and lovely conversation. I've appreciated it.
Thanks, Michelle. It's been fun.
My pleasure. Bye for now.
Thanks.